Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to H3 TV, where we come to you every week to share ideas on how the heck do we stay hopeful, healthy, and happy in the midst of the hard. So before I go into our show and invite our guest today, I want to tell you two things. One, I'm wearing a shirt called Vulnerable is the New Strong. And this shirt is from my dear friend, Renee Rongen, who is brilliant speaker, consultant, coach, who really just inspires me to keep sharing my stories to help people heal on their journey. But H3 TV comes to you because I started this during COVID when I knew things were hard, and today's a hard day. So I'm coming to you, I'm going to come down a little bit. I just want to show you guys this shirt. I started my day today at 3 a.m, crying, getting up in bed and crying because of this horrific, heartbreaking shooting in Burnsville, just a couple blocks from where we raised our family, where we lived for 25 years. And when this shirt jumped out of the closet, Vulnerable's the New Strong, I was thinking about it 3 a.m. when I was sad and very little details. I really try not to watch the news, even though many people text me and Facebook me and make sure that I know, even though I would know, because I do stay informed, just little bites. I had tears because I was thinking about all the children. I was thinking about the children from the peace officers, the children from the firefighters, and the children of the man who was so violent, and he had 7 kids in the house, and my heart broke for them as much as it breaks for everyone involved in this. I'm just so heartbroken by the violence and the anger that our young people are seeing today. And so I'm just inviting you, if you're a praying person, to say a little prayer for those kiddos' eyes and hearts that they can heal and not let this horrific act of violence define their lives. So I come to you vulnerable and heavy today with that on my heart, but knowing there's also a lot of good people in the world and that I get to be one of those good people to encourage people. And today I have the pleasure of having my friend Polly with me. So please help me welcome to the stage, Polly. Hey, Polly, thanks for being with us.
Crowds cheering.
So Polly, tell us who you are, what you do, and where you live.
Okay, my name is Polly Letofsky, and I am best known for being the first woman to walk around the world, and that led me to getting ripped off in the publishing world, which led me to owning my word publishing, which is what I do more than full-time at this point, and owner of 2.5 cats. I am settled in Denver, Colorado. How's that for a life wrap up in one
I
thing?
like it. It was beautiful. I did not know. Oh, and I forgot to tell our audience, if you have questions or comments for myself or Polly, ask anytime during the show or put it in the comments on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, wherever you're watching from, and we will make sure to respond to your comments. Thank you for those of you that have been commenting. Polly, I didn't know you walked around the world. Holy cow. Is this for real?
For real, girl.
Wow. I watched
Real girl. So yeah, I had a dream my whole life to go walk around the world, and true story. So I see this, I grew up in that era of the free range kid, right? Feral children, right? Go out.
No helicopter parents, no time for that.
Yeah. So I saw this story in a paper when I was 12 about some man walking around the world, and he was from a small town in Minnesota. All right.
Yeah.
I grew up in Minneapolis. And I got this idea in my head that I wanted to do that as well. That's how I wanted to go discover the world. So I put the paper down and I went outside and walked around the house for 3 hours. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I always had this dream in my mind about walking around the world, but it's so far outside the box, it's not really going to happen. And finally, at the age of 37, I left from Colorado and headed west around 4 continents and 22 countries, 14,000 plus miles, etc. So, but it's when I wrote the book about it that now you and I know each other, because that launched me into the publishing world right at the advent of the explosion in self-publishing. So if you're going to get ripped off, you do it right.
Don't, and a lot of people lately have been like, you don't need a traditional publisher. That just costs you money more than it makes you money. And they don't value your work like you value your work. They're not going to promote your work. You're going to do it. So great. Well, now I know that I do need to read your book. That's fascinating. So Greg and I watched Naiad this weekend. Have you watched that?
Oh God, I haven't seen it yet, but she's see this little guy here. This is the Buggy Bob. I'm backwards here, so I can't.
Oh my gosh.
He's right here, and he's now retired into a kitty bed. But this is the Buggy Bob that I pushed around the world. So
I gotta read your book. Fantastic, amazing. I love travel. I love travel.
I'm over it. So
I've ridden my bike far and I've walked 3 days for breast cancer, but around the world, that's pretty dang amazing. I love it. Okay, so I want you to just tell me, and since you're in publishing, I know you know a lot about words, but when I say the word disruption, what comes to mind? How do you identify the word disruption? What does that mean to you? Your definition.
I think about it when you just say that, I think of pattern interrupts, and I take those seriously and I look for them. We really can get into, I don't call them ruts, but we get them into a routine. Then when the tiniest thing outside our routine, this is so funny because it's like cats. I don't know if you know much about cats, but some cats get so anxious that if you so much as move the furniture differently, they all start stressing out and everything. And so that's almost like us. So you kind of need a pattern interrupt once in a while. And I really think about that a lot. Like if you every morning walk to the Starbucks one way, do a pattern interrupt. I'm going to turn left and right and go down this alley and through the woods and through the backyard. And you know what I mean? Just have a pattern interrupt. That's what I think of it as. And especially when it comes to, say, decision making. Okay.
Yeah.
I get a real kick out of, say you come to a problem. Well, here's a solution. And people usually run with it. A solution. But come up with 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 more options.
Yes.
And it's really fun, dare I say.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of wish our leaders would do that. You know, okay, that's one option.
What else can we do? I like to say that, like, when I invite people to, when I'm in a conversation with someone or working with someone and they have a complaint about their work situation, I am seeing my power's goofy.
Yeah, you froze on me a wee bit.
I know, and I can just see it's goofy power. Anyway, but when people come and they complain and I'm working with them, coaching or working with their organization, I'm like, awesome. That sounds like really a frustrating situation. What are your 3 solutions? Like, what? I want you to fix it. I'm like, well, you don't like it. So what would you like? If you don't know, if you don't have solutions and multiple solutions, I love that. And I had a psychology teacher and she said, every time you come to my class, do your best to take a different route. Our brain needs that. Like we get so stuck in a rut, as you said. So Polly, when you think about your own life and this exciting journey you've been on and that you like solutions and you like thinking outside the box, what is a disruption that you have faced professionally or personally? What's something that disrupted your life?
Well, let's say it's a client that isn't happy with you. Okay.
Okay. This is not a hypothetical. I am seriously asking you because we're going to dig into that specific situation. So we're not doing a like, let's say, we're doing a how about. We're not doing a let's say someday you had this. So, and you had to have
I got a good one
on your journey. I mean,
okay. Here we go. No hypotheticals. And that really was not a hypothetical, but I can't really give names.
Let's say, and I was like, is this real? Okay. You can say I had a disruption with a client. If you have a specific, we're just going to dig into that specific story. So I want you to have some, I want you to remember that moment.
Here's the real situation. Okay. So I'm out walking around the world, minding my business. Okay. And I'm a little Jewish girl. Well, not really Jewish. Dad was Jewish, so I grew up half Jewish. But I say that I'm the food side of Jewish, so there it is. But for this sake, it was important because some people don't care if it's your mother's side or your father's side, whatever. So I walk into the Muslim world when 9/11 struck. Okay.
And where were you?
I was in Malaysia.
Okay.
All right. And I didn't have the communication. Certainly, I did this from 1999 to 2004. So smartphones didn't exist yet. And texting was that kind of texting where, you press a button 3 times to hit C, it'd take you an hour and a half to write a sentence, this kind of texting. So that's the world I was in. Anyway, so what to do? Well, I was getting inundated with phone calls, certainly from my parents and my family and the friends and people around the world I'd met already, and they knew where I was and the situation, saying, get on a flight home. Well, first of all, you can't get on a flight home because the flight's shut down, if you recall.
Yes.
Okay. And I knew going into that journey that there were going to be situations I could never plan for or predict. And I had to take a deep breath and look at all of my options. All right, one option is to go hide out until flights are going again and jump on a flight home. Okay, it's clearly an option, but I didn't like that option, knowing that a knee-jerk reaction to anything has never served anyone well. So what are other options? And long story short, I was sort of adopted off the streets pretty early on in my journey by the Lions clubs. If you're familiar with Lions clubs, like Rotary clubs, and they're based in every community around the world. And they sort of adopted me and started passing me village to village. By the time I got to Malaysia, it was like full on 100 people walking with me every day. I was like Forrest Gump out there, you know?
Oh my gosh, you are Forrest Gump. Okay, I love this. Okay.
So I really did have so many people. So I knew I was protected, but I took that opportunity to talk to them. They're very highly connected, well-respected people. And so I thought, here I am surrounded by these highly connected, powerful people. Why don't I just lean on them a little bit? And that was an option. So in my journey, there was, I have this like whole, I don't know, proverbial list of mysteries that will never be solved. And one of the mysteries that will never be solved is right after 9/11, there were police at my door, my hotel door. The Lions clubs would put me up in a hotel, and the police were at my door every night. And they say that they don't know where that came from, that the Lions clubs did not call the police. Well, who did? Who did? I wasn't in touch with the American embassy. I wasn't in touch with anyone in the Malaysian government. So that's one of the big mysteries. But then the police would escort the entire group of sometimes over 100 people every day. And they're like, we don't know where they came from. Well, we're just walking. Anyway, so they were powerful. So I sat down one morning, maybe 2 days after 9/11. And I said, listen, guys, I want to make the right decision here. I want to keep going, but I don't want to be stupid either. And there's the line you kind of have to balance between a tough time that will work its way through and you can make a decision to get out of that. But, you know, you don't want to be stupid either. Well, I said I'd do it. I'm going to go right through this war zone, you know. So I wanted to take a deep breath and get the proper information and get the proper help. So I reached out to them one morning and I just said, can you guys help me contact all the Lions clubs up through Malaysia into Thailand and maybe contact the international Lions Club president and ask if he would consider now an international sponsorship, because before that it would just go town to town and then evolved into country to country, but there was no official sponsorship. So they just said, yeah, we'll see what we can do. I met him for dinner and they said, done deal. He's going to contact all of the Lions clubs around the world on the route that you're going on and ask for their support and then put us all in touch. So that was one of those situations when you call it a disruptor. Yeah, that's a pretty good disruptor, because I had to change my route, you know, because then wars started breaking out, right? I'm like, oh, geez, war, turn left. You know, because the war in Afghanistan then started, and then eventually the war in Iraq. And yeah, so how's that for one?
Wow, that's a pretty big disruptor. There's so many things to unpack there. For one thing, holy cow. I mean, I remember 9/11 so clearly, and I was a young mom with little kids, and, you know, just the impact on our lives in the safety of my own home. I can't imagine being in another country, and a country that you didn't know very many people, and thank goodness for the Lions Club. Man, you make me want to go join the Lions Club right now. Like, that is amazing how they rallied and protected you and walked with you and connected you, and so many gifts inside of that. But there had to be a moment of terrifying, like, you seem like a pretty, you go with the flow, but you also, I love that you said, I took a moment to think about it. Because I think sometimes we don't slow down, and sometimes that's what I'm teaching people is like, give yourself some time, take a deep breath. Like, don't just react. You got to, like, be intentional, communicate, and act before you move forward. So when you were feeling like, I mean, and you are most likely much more adventuresome than I, because I would be terrified hiding in a corner somewhere. And I don't let fear lead in my life, but that would be a pretty vulnerable time, right? And so how did you stay hopeful in the midst of this? Like, it would be easy to quit, not easy, but maybe a smart decision, a safe decision to quit, to think this is ridiculous. Who do I think I am? It would have been okay to hide out for a month if you could financially afford to find some place to hunker down. How did you keep moving forward, keep thinking forward even before you moved forward? And how did you stay hopeful in the midst of the disruption all around you and the unknown? There was so much unknown, and that was not a one moment in time. It went on, as you said, to war. So.
Well, you know, this is one of those things I can look back on now with all this, you know, space between the journey and now this. I went from 1999 to 2004. So we're coming up on 20 years ago that I finished. Holy cow. Seems like a minute and a half ago.
And you did it over 5 years.
5 years, man. 5 years.
Did you take time off and, like, get a job and have a life, or did you just keep going and going?
No.
No.
I did discover the first, like, year into it that I really needed a mental break. Not so much physical, but physical certainly helped to take a break. Break meaning like 5 days, maybe even 3 days. But I had to take a break about every 2 months. Okay. So I would then start planning my journey. If I was in the middle of nowhere after 2 months, then I'd just wait until I got somewhere that had services.
Okay.
So I had to remain flexible and, of course, available to pivot sort of on demand, you know, like when the war in Afghanistan broke out, I was like, okay, well, my plans changed. And then countries shut their borders down. It's like, oh, okay. Next plan B, plan C, plan D. But as far as your question,
how did you stay hopeful to keep moving forward?
Yeah. With all this space now between when I did it and now, I can look back and say, wow, that's how I did that. Because once I got back and then eventually started My Word Publishing and got into business, and you go do these professional development things and you do webinars, and people are giving this advice. And I'm like, oh, well, that's what I did. Hey, well, that's what I did. I didn't have a fancy professional CEO name for that in practice, but basically it was, I wrote down my plan every day. Girl, you know how they say you create your action plan and put it somewhere you can see it, and so you stare at it every day and this kind of thing. That's what I did. And so I would write down, on this day I'm walking from here to here, and this day walking here to here, then I'm going to take a day off in this town, and then I'm going to walk here to here. And I always had a plan 2 months in advance. I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself from that 2 months, but that's what I did. So sort of that action plan and looking at it, staring at it, studying it every day. So that's one thing I did. But there was also visualization. girl, you can call it dreaming, whatever, but I visualized the end of a certain leg of the journey. You know, I'll give India as an example. That was the toughest leg. I double dog dare anybody to do that. And then I'll be at the end celebrating with you because I don't know, it was just a fool's journey. But anyway, so I walked across India. And it was getting so tough. But I will tell you, and I know a lot of people ask me this all the time, did you ever feel like quitting? Did you ever feel like giving up? And I honestly say not one single time did I ever think about quitting. And I was miserable. And there was crying and bitching and bawling, the whole scene. But not one single time did I think, well, maybe I'll just screw this. I gave it a good shot. I'm hitchhiking to the nearest airport and I'm going to fly home. But visualization helped a lot. Oh God, it was so, I'm having flashbacks. Hang on.
I feel it. Okay. You're provoking a lot of questions in me. I want to know a couple of things. I want to know how many miles you walked in a typical day. I want to know how many journals you went through. I want to know where the heck you found money on this journey. And yeah, miles, journals, and money. Like, did you leave with $1 million taped to your bot? Like, I can't even imagine where to start with this. I did the 3-day, 5-day, 6-day AIDS ride from Minneapolis, Chicago. There was thousands of people and teams every 4 to 6 miles for us with snacks and camping and what like you're doing. Like, who are your people? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with mileage. I did an average of 16 miles a day. So there is the statistic. When you look at the evolution of cities and towns and farms and whatever, they're basically 16 miles apart. There was this this historic piece that I read, and when we were very much a farming, community, the son would grow up and move to the next, he'd move 16 miles down the road and start his farm, right? Because that was as far as you could go when you could, take your load somewhere and bring it back in the same day, right? Okay. And of course, there's rivers and water, and how that flowed is how people would settle into a community, and eventually a city was born. So 16 miles a day, I walked town to town.
Okay.
And that's usually about 16 miles on average. Sometimes it was 4.
Okay.
Sometimes it was 28, sometimes 75, but it was an average of about 16. As far as money, when I was dreaming about how to do this, I thought, well, I'll get sponsorships. Girl, ain't nobody giving you money. Nobody.
I like to go on a vacation and there's no GoFundMe. Who wants to pay? Nobody.
As it turns out, and this could be different. This was now 25 years ago when I was really going at it. But corporations, businesses, they don't give money sponsorships to one-person events. Okay. So they might get involved with, say, the Susan G. Komen or the Avon Walk or something like that. That's very different than the one-person event. So it took me a while to figure that one out, though. And I did get products and services and things like that. Shoes, for example, at New Balance gave me a new pair of shoes every 2 months. And
nice.
But once the Lions Clubs got involved, and that was just on a street corner in the middle of a very, very, very rural town. And it was in southern Australia. It was my 4th night walking in Australia. And I walked into this little town. And so far, so this first 4 nights or first 3 nights, my walk was for breast cancer. So the women of the Breast Cancer Network would come out and just pick me up and take me home and water me and feed me and put me down at my spot, and then I'd carry on. So by the 4th night, I was just too far outside Melbourne for anyone to help me anymore. So I was like, okay, well, I had a pretty good go of it. I'm finally on my own. So once I walked into this small town, there wasn't a campground or a pub or anywhere to stay in a youth hostel. So I thought I'll try to find a town park, because a town always has a town park. I'll just sleep under a nice little tree and that'll be that. And so I was wandering around looking lost. This is before the smartphone, the GPS. I didn't have a map for this small town. So I'm just wandering aimlessly looking for the park. And this woman came up behind me and she said, "You look lost. Can I help you find something?" And I said, "Yeah, I was looking for the town park if you have one." And she heard my funny accent. So she said, "Where are you from?" So I told her where I was from and what I was doing. And oh my goodness, let me introduce myself. My name is Margaret, and I'm the president of the local Lions Club. Oh, the Lions Clubs have got to get involved with this. Come home with me. And I said, okay. So I pushed my little buggy Bob and we followed Margaret home. And then she called all of her Lions Club buddies saying, "Meet us at the pub," because everything happens at the pub in Australia, right? So sure enough, we go to the pub and it's just packed with people, okay? Because that's what you do in a small rural town in Australia. So she got up, her name is Margaret, and she stood up on this stool and she got everyone's attention. And she said, "Let me introduce Polly. This is what she's doing. And all the money raised here stays here and helps Australian women. So let's show her a little Aussie spirit, okay?" And then she leaned over. She plucked the hat right off a guy's head and starts passing this hat around. So you can't get a photo of that, but I just have this great picture etched in my memory of this hat floating through the bar and through the pool hall and across the dartboard competition, and and everyone's throwing money into it. And then the bartender announces to everyone, "We've raised $332 for the Breast Cancer Network Australia. Yay!" And then he wrote a check, sent it down to him. And then they introduced me to the next Lions Club. They took me out fundraising. They introduced me to the next Lions Club. And that blossomed into an international sponsorship around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were doing this. Are you a survivor of breast cancer?
No, just a number of women in my world were being diagnosed. And when I went to the doctor, because there was a lot of people in my community, I had 2 aunts who had breast cancer. One did not survive it. So I thought, I got to go get this thing called a mammogram. I got to go do that. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor said, "No, you don't need a mammogram. You can't get breast cancer because it doesn't run on your mother's side of the family." Mm-hmm. Oh, all right. Good for me. Can't get breast cancer. But my friends let me have it. Of course you can get breast cancer. Who told you this? Oh, that's ridiculous. Every woman in the world is at risk for getting breast cancer. So it was that night walking home, because I had a little 2-mile walk home. That's when I got the idea that I would finally do that walk I've wanted to do, and I would do it for breast cancer. But getting full circle back to answering your question about the money, I couldn't really get any money sponsorships. And then I was working, there was 3 years, girl, 3 years where I was working 4 jobs, 1 full-time, 3 part-time, and about 100 hours a week. And they're all minimum wage jobs. So I wasn't making a lot of money. But once the Lions Clubs got involved, you know, they were spoiling me silly. So
I love that for you. My mother is a 35-year survivor. I'm one of 5 girls. And I'm big about, so I love that you shared this piece, Polly, because it's really important to me. And whatever, this is probably my judgmental brain, so I apologize in advance to any listeners. But I think a lot of people set goals just about themselves and what's in it for them. And I just know the immense reward. And when our goal can be part of our own dream and part of our own physical goals, but that there is a component to it that is for breast cancer, that is for AIDS, that is for mental health, that is for, you know, suicide, whatever it is, homelessness. I mean, there's a Lou Gehrig's, MS. There's so many causes out there that if we get even a glimmer of spotlight on us, which you had the spotlight on you from the sun, I love that, that a glimmer of spotlight on us, that we should use it to amplify a voice for something beyond I want to feel good. I think you're really going to like NIAD. It's fascinating and interesting listening to you, because she tried to get sponsorships too, and it wasn't really till after that people wanted to. But it was definitely just her goal about herself, and she had her reasons for doing it. But But I'm like, man, you could have partnered with a cause and made it bigger than ourselves. And that was just, in my own mind, a little disappointing part of the story. Powerful story, commitment to do hard things in amazing ways. But I love, and not only was it about breast cancer, then you have the Lions Club in there. And I think you had to make that commitment to go and to be willing for yourself, for your friends, for women you'll never meet. And then you were blessed along the way with the Lions Club spoiling you silly. And I love that. They should spoil you silly. So my next question really is about health. So as a person that owned gyms, 2 franchise gyms for 12 years, I think health is so much more than our physical. It's our mind, it's our financial, it's our relationships, it's all these things. And I wonder, how did you stay healthy? How did you keep your relationships healthy, your, physical, emotional, mental, financial health in the midst of not just this moment in disruption, but really this is a massive disruption that you chose, but that is massive, to disrupt your life for 5 years and to be willing to work, as I've been there with you, working 3 and 4 jobs, to being able to work and save and be so disciplined so that you could go do this experiment extraordinary experiment that disrupted your life. How did you stay healthy in any or all ways during those 5 years?
Well, people ask all the time, how did you get in shape for that? Okay. Well, getting in shape, I was always in shape. I mean, I've always been an athlete, and I lived in Vail, Colorado. I mean, I'd go outside and walk up the mountain, so it wasn't like I was laying on the couch going, well, I better get off this couch if I'm going to start walking around the world. But things that I had to train for were, in fact, health, how to take care of myself. And I was really working hard on the inevitability of becoming lonely. My vision in my head prior to leaving, I don't know where this comes from, but is that I would be walking through Western China and months would go by without seeing another human being. And I would see a farmer and beg him to talk to me, even if it wasn't in the same language. That's the vision that was in my head, as crazy as it is. In fact, what turned out to be the reality is the overwhelm of the crowds, in particular in Malaysia. Hospitality is quite stunning there, overwhelmingly so. And I mean that sincerely when I say there were, 80, 100 people walking with me every day, village to village to village, because Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, they were so big. Now the Rotary clubs got involved as well. So village to village, they would change clubs. So it's nice to meet you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you to 100 people. And then, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Every 3 miles for 2 months. So I wasn't prepared for that overwhelming attention when I had tried to train myself, prepare myself for that inevitability of becoming lonely. I remember reading stories, reading books about people that had done similar-ish things, usually by accident. For example, this British couple, they retire, sell everything, and buy a boat and sail around. They're in the Pacific, get hit by, I don't know, whale or something, puts a big gash in their boat. They got 15 minutes before that doggone boat is going to be under. So they got to, throw out their little tugboat and throw everything in that they could possibly need. And they're wandering around the Pacific for 5 months using dental floss and needles to catch sea turtles to eat, and I'm like, no matter how bad it gets, I am not going to be wandering aimlessly through the South Pacific. Okay. So that really helped.
Yeah.
And then as far as health, physical health, I have always kind of studied that, always.
Okay. And
one of the toughest things I'll tell you is that people are very hospitable all over the world, and their idea of welcoming you and being a good host is to feed you and frankly push food on you. So it was very tough to say, no. I'm good, thank you. I just want some eggs and a banana. That's fine. I'm good, And then the push and the push and the push. So again, drawing that line between when to stick up for yourself and when to be patient. It was like I was just walking this line for 5 years. Oh, that was tough. But and how do you can't complain about that. These people are being very helpful and hospitable.
Well, and you had to know, I mean, you're making me think about, which it's totally different, but being pregnant and like, I have to really listen to my body when I'm pregnant. I have to know when it's time to go to bed, what to eat, what not to eat. When, like, if you are not, our body's always talking to us, right? But if we don't listen, we can get really off track. But if you really listen, it will tell you, that's enough. Thank you so much. That's enough food. Thank you so much. I need sleep. Like, I was thinking about you sleeping, especially with so many different places. Did you have a minimum amount of sleep that you needed to get? Did you have a strategy or anything for getting sleep? Or did you just fall over exhausted?
People, for the most part, again, hosting me.
Okay.
And they were very good about asking, how can we help you? But there were always weather concerns. If it's really hot, I got to start really early, So I had to watch the weather a lot and not to decide whether I'm going to go or not, but how to dress for it and when to leave, at what part of day. So it's not, okay, it's going to be raining and storming. All right, I'll dress like this. Not, well, I'm not going to go today then. Geez, I would never get anywhere if that were the case.
Right.
So
were you ever afraid, Polly? You were greeted by such great hospitality, and I agree with you 100%. There is so many wonderful, hospitable people in the world, but there's also some people that are not safe. Did you ever feel unsafe by people that were welcoming you into their homes and into their lives, or were you just protected? And
I really wasn't. Now with the people I stayed with, again, they were community leaders, Lions clubs and Rotary clubs and all of that. There were some scary things that happened. I remember this one time, it hit me like 2 months later. It's like, hey, wait a minute. I should have been really scared, right?
that wasn't a good choice.
And it was like, I was walking alone and I didn't have my buggy bob. Get a load of this. So I'd developed this like carpal tunnel because I was pushing my buggy uphill for, a month. But the Lions Club said, just leave your buggy here and we'll transport it from village to village right up the east coast of Australia. So I didn't have my buggy bob with me, but my hosts in this very rural area of Australia, they said, just walk up this road and about 4 o'clock, you're going to hit this little general store. I'll meet you there, 4 o'clock. So I go walking up. Sure enough, I see the little general store on the left, right as I pictured it, or I saw it. This guy pulled up and he was just tatted head to toe. And he just said, get in. I said, oh, shit. All right. No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. I said, get in. Now, what if that store had not been there? What if I wasn't looking for it and had just seen it? What if that guy had come a minute before and I didn't see that parking, that my end place for the day? Do you know what I mean? So here's what happened though. So that little scene happened. I go running into the store. My host meets me there, throws me in the car, and off we go into fundraising events and interviews and all the rest of it. And so that's why I didn't even think about it for months later. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I think I was scared. What? It took that long for it to sort of like debrief in my head or something,
Well, you were caught up in the moment. And, a lot of times, Polly, when I'm talking to people, I'm like, one of two things leads every decision in my life: love or fear, And you chose your love for the community, your love for the women you knew, your love for doing good. You must have chosen love a million times in that 5-year period. And I think so often fear stops us, like someday, maybe, I don't know, that won't work. What will people think? Nobody sponsor. Like all those things can stop us, but you just kept going. And I just think That's almost as powerful as the journey is your decision to just get up and go. Like you said, I didn't think about, well, it's going to be too hot or it's going to rain or it would have stopped you every day. You just were like, I'm going to get up and go. And I don't know if it was the love for your aunts. I don't know if it was the love for this commitment to the mission of doing this incredible thing of walking around the world, or what it was, but I think it's beautiful that you just kept going in the midst of this. And so the third H in my H3 is happiness. So I really do believe laughter and humor and happiness are one of the keys. They're one of the greatest forms of medicine. Where did you find humor and happiness? In the midst of a stub toe or an exhausting day or bad weather or all the things, or a crazy person that tried to kidnap you. So
I think that was writing or journaling. So when you asked one time, and I didn't get to it, about how many journals did I go through, I had, I left in 1999. So these things called laptops were just coming out, and of course, I had gone to great lengths to research the best laptop. Oh, and I got it. And it was only 6 pounds and it had a full 2.5 hours of battery life. And that was like the best computer on the market. But it was just too big. So I ended up getting this little itty bitty computer. It's like a 75%, whatever. And it's by HP. And it didn't have full software, right? So it had Microsoft Pocket Word and Pocket Excel. Like you could have 10 and 12 point font options and Calibri and Times Roman. I mean, that was my option. And I'm like, well, good enough for what I'm doing. And that was only 2 pounds. So I just wrote in that thing every day and constantly saved things. We didn't have the streaming and Wi-Fi and all that nonsense at the time. So that would have been a game changer. But so that's what I kept my journals in every night. And I wrote every night in a stream of consciousness fashion. Not any editing going on in my head. There wasn't a comma. There wasn't a pause. Right?
I love it.
I know it. And so as it turns out, when you do stream of consciousness writing, which I recommend to people now and what I do now, it really just opens you up to stop that editing in your head, right? You can go back later and then sculpt it, but the first round is just barfing it out.
That's right.
In a stream of consciousness fashion. Therefore, the mind took me into humor of what happened that day. Okay. Like the skies just cracked open and dumped all over me, just me. After I'd climbed up this 10% grade hill fighting with the trucks, and I discovered that the more miserable I was, the funnier I was. So I kind of started looking forward to that stream of consciousness writing every night, even when I was in my most miserable. And I'll tell you, even in my most miserable situations, because you're going to have them, you're dealing with Mother Nature constantly. Okay. Every single day I'm on a road I hadn't been. I'm not boo-hooing. I'm just, this is the reality, right? Down a road you've never been, to a town you've never been, and you're meeting and partying and staying with people you've never met before. And that's every day for 5 years. You are not seeing a familiar face. That's just the reality. And so I always looked forward to just barfing it all out at the end of the day. Good times and bad times. Good times and bad times.
Hey, you and I love that, and we're women of words and writers. And where is it said, write drunk, edit sober? But I think barf it out. I think so many times that analysis paralysis stops people from writing their true stories. And I do think exhaustion, because I have been there, exhaustion, just like finding you start like crying and then laughing at the same time, because you're like, oh my gosh, and then this, and they're all like, is this real life? And people are always like, your life could be a sitcom, and I'm like, yeah, kind of, but kind of it's in that misery and humor together. So I think that's beautiful. And I love that you wrote it. And now I'm excited to read your book. And I don't make enough time for reading because I'm too busy writing. I want to know, Polly, is there anything when you look back prior to 1999 that you wish you would have known before you embarked on this incredible journey?
I don't think so. I think it was a doggone blessing that I didn't know what was what was ahead of me. And I mean this to my core. the old mantra, ignorance is bliss, is so true.
So true.
I mean, if I'd been standing at the starting line on August 1st, 1999, and someone would have said, because there's a lot of stuff that happened that I mean, we obviously don't have all day, but if someone would have said, you're going to go through A, B, C, D, and E, would you go? I'd say, let me think about it.
No, thank you. That is not what I envisioned. I was worried about loneliness, not all those other problems.
And I did not expect it to be easy. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. I did not expect it to be easy. I had been out in the world enough that I understood that the world's going to throw stuff at you, and you got to, take all the, you ever played dodgeball, right, in grade school? Right? That's all, but I was very realistic about that. I think the romance of the road was bitch slapped right out of me before I left. So that's a good.
Hey, this is a PG show. PG.
Oh, yeah.
I should know better inviting you on, though. Then it's like, never mind. What was I thinking? All right. How about this? What have you done with this extraordinary journey that you've been on? How have you helped other people by your experience and journey?
Well, I think of a couple ways. An easy one is that I have become sort of the matriarch of the long distance walker, whether I like that or not. So when people are going out to walk across their country or whatever, and they reach out, I try not to give too much advice, but here's my one piece of advice I usually give people, because I don't like giving advice. We're all in different eras. Okay. Whole different era today than when I did it. But I say, take every single opportunity that you can to not be stupid. That's all I got. So there's this boat. I swear to God, I almost did this. Well, not almost, but I was presented the opportunity anyway. There was a boat going from Northern Australia in through the Indonesian islands up to Singapore. And I was going to Singapore. And there was this boat, this fishing boat, all men, well, you can jump on the boat with us. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds like a nifty idea. Okay, all men, I got nothing. And that is the number one pirated area in the world, is between those Indonesian islands. So, I mean, if I would just calm down a minute and go, is that a good idea? Or am I being stupid? And it's like, oh, stupid wins. Just take every opportunity you can to not be stupid. Is all I got for people. But to answer your question in another way, which would be in business, I'm very good at the very sudden pivot. Okay. And because I had to in that world every single day for 5 years, you got to look at what's in front of you and pivot on the fly, essentially. And so I can do that in business. I can do that dealing with people. Yeah. So, and as far as what I can do to help people then with that is teach and show by, doing.
Yeah. I love that. How much money did you raise? Do you know?
$250,000 US, because all the money stayed in those countries. So it was like, Thai baht. Well, we didn't really raise money in India, but did advocacy work. And still, I was just invited to a book club on Saturday night, and they gave $250. So there is a local organization that I give to there. So I'll say $250,000-ish, and always growing.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Yeah, 13 breast cancer organizations around the world.
Wow, incredible. Such important work. And also the voice, like just giving voice to it. I'm like, nope, that's not a true story. It's not just because your mom has it. Here's the deal. Here's how our bodies work. It's not just women. It's not just this. We all need to pay attention, right? And so, unfortunately, I have 3 girlfriends right now going through breast
Holy
cancer.
Cow.
30, 40, and 50. So I just, heartbreaking, right? Heartbreaking to watch your friends hurt and to get to be just a little sliver of their journey to health and to healing. So I appreciate so much what you what you did and what you're doing. And I love the adventure part of it. Is beautiful. What was like the greatest, is there a moment there like, you know, what was the most amazing moment, or one moment that I'll never forget? Is there something like that you want to share?
Yeah, there were some really big milestones, but when you're in one of those big milestone moments, you're sort of caught up in that. So you're not really in the moment. You know what I mean? So the moments that I remember wouldn't mean anything to anybody. So here is an example. I remember when I first started really getting serious about it and planning my walk, and I go out and I get all the maps, okay, because GPS didn't exist yet, right? So do you remember with the maps, you used to have those red dots that would go from this intersection to this intersection and say 13 miles, right?
Yes.
Right? So I did that all the way.
Quarter inch equals, yes.
All the way. I had the map spread all over my floor. And I remember doing that and getting to London. And that was going to be like 3/4 done of my journey. And I remember thinking, sitting on the floor with all my maps around me, thinking, wow, someday I will actually have walked to London. And isn't that cool? Right? So then years go by and I don't know anything about London, right? So there's all these bridges that cross the Thames to get you into the city. And I just choose one. I don't know one from another. I'll choose that Westminster Bridge thing. Yeah, I'll go that way. So I go walking over with my buggy Bob, walking over the Westminster Bridge. And that moment came back to me of when I was sitting on my living room floor with my maps spread all around me saying, someday I will walk into London. And here I was, and it was like 5 o'clock at night on a November night. So it was dark. And the Thames River is just bubbling, and the city is just bustling with all the people coming from work and going to the pub and meeting their friends and talking on the phone. And Big Ben was in front of me, and it was such a moment. Like I was all alone in that crowd of bustling people enjoying this beautiful moment that I had sort of envisioned probably 5 years prior at that point. And it was happening.
Wow.
So that wouldn't mean anything to anybody except that I had to stop and pause and say, I did it. You know?
I think it means maybe visually seeing you walk wouldn't as be so significant, but I think you sharing that story, Polly, reminds us that with vision and planning and commitment and discipline, whatever we envision for our life can become our reality. Whatever that is. And I think that's the significance of the story, is that I've had so much vision in my life, but then it's like, well, how do I get there? I was just telling a friend today, I get at least 3 calls a week. Hey, I want to be a speaker like you. Can you show me how? And I'm like, sure. If you want to coach with me some and do can I just talk to you for like 20 minutes? And you got to do the work, right?
Yeah.
You got to make the plan. You got to see the plan, but then you got to do the work to get to where you want to be in life. And whether it's a bridge or whether it's to walk in, and just the power of that. I mean, for me, I would think that would be very emotional, of just tears, thinking, holy cow, I visualized, I planned, and here I am 3/4 of the way around the world. How many flights did you take? Are you taking flights in between places?
Yeah. So prior to leaving, you know, this is when the internet was just starting. So I had to snail mail a letter to the Guinness Book of World Records, which was in London. And I'll tell you, frankly, the only reason I did that is to get people off my back, because people kept asking, is it going to be? And I never gave 2 damn hoots about the Guinness Book of World Records. But I thought, well, in the event that someday I give a hoot, I'd hate to then lose out on a technicality. So I wrote them a snail mail letter, and they sent me back, what qualifies you to say that you've walked around the world? And so at that time, because it does not exist anymore, you had to walk at least 14,000 miles. You needed to start and finish in the same place. And then you could fly continent to continent. So those were the guidelines. I started and finished in Vail, Colorado. And I walked 14,124 miles. And you know what? Frankly, that is just the miles in sequential order. There were always, I don't know how many thousands of miles were actually getting lost, right? Like
detour.
Yeah.
Life's all about the detours, and I love that.
Yeah, so let's say at least 14,124 miles. And I never did give a hoot. And get a load of this. And not even that long ago, maybe 5 years ago now, I did speaking as well, for the record. And I remember someone said, you can get paid a lot more if you say you're a Guinness World Record holder. I'm like, oh, okay. My records are how many years old now and everything, but I still have them tucked away here in my filing cabinet. So I go through to the Guinness book, and it's like they put you through 4 levels. First level, I get through. Second level, get through. Third level, get through. I'm on 4th level, and then they say, oh, we don't do that anymore, that record anymore. So now the record is longest walk as opposed to first of. So to be longest walk is 18,000 miles. So I'd have to get back on the road for 5,000 miles or 4,000. And I'm like, well, that ain't going to happen. Considering it wasn't a goal of mine anyway. So thank God, that would have been very disappointing, wouldn't it have?
Yeah.
But yeah, you had to keep track of your miles. People had to sign off every day that they saw you walking this stretch. And of course I had the Lions Club, so they signed off. Nice. And photos and newspaper articles and things like that.
Polly, who is somebody, or how did you help somebody, or who is someone that your walk has really helped on their journey, whether it's a business journey or a life journey? How has your walk inspired them or encouraged them to keep going when something got hard and they had a detour in their life?
I wish I knew. Okay. I do know a couple of them, but that's it. And you sort of wonder. One of them was a breast cancer. Her mother had breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And when I was walking, this was in Australia, Northern Australia. So I'd been on the road at that point for a couple of years. And this woman came racing out. I had a lot of media coverage when I was going through Australia, and it took 9 months. So I was there for a long time. And this woman had been watching my journey and following along and insisted that her mother go and get a mammogram. And did. And they caught breast cancer early. So this woman came out to find me. Luckily, there's one road in Australia. I mean, I might be being a little facetious, but I mean, essentially, so it was easy to find me. So she came out and found me. And so that was really encouraging, because there is a lot that I don't know how it would have affected people, or even real young kids. I remember talking to, gosh, this was in Wisconsin, so the very end of my journey, and there were like 3 young guys, young boys, like 12 years old, on their bikes, just on their little, 1-speed peddlers, right? And they came out to find me, and they had a little, watermelon for me. Let's stop, and here's some watermelon for you. So really cute, right? But they just sat and asked me questions. And I said, I was your age when I got this idea in my head. So, and then we just had this talk. What dreams do you have that you're afraid to say out loud? And just sitting on this little embankment off the highway, eating watermelon with these 3 12-year-old boys, that was really a special time. And you sort of wonder, did that affect them like it affected me?
Yeah.
I just thought it was cool.
Well, I'm going to invite people to listening. If you know Polly's story, if she's inspired, you reach out and tell her.
Yeah.
For those of us that speak and write, we sometimes know that our words, our experiences, our goals are inspiring you, but it's always so wonderful. I love the emails and the notes that I get. And we don't do it for that, but it's a great reminder on those hard days to keep going. Mm-hmm. So Polly and my relationship is Polly helps books get out to people. I mean, she does lots of things, and I'm going to have her share her links to her website or whatever she wants to. But Polly and I met because I wrote a book, Be the Exception, my 2nd of 9 books now. And I wanted to get it out to the world more and get it in the right hands of people. And Polly helped that happen. And so if you have a book and you're like, hey, it came out yesterday, or it came out 10 years ago, and I want to get my handle on it again and get it back out to the people that need it, Polly's a great connection for that, in just getting your work and your words out to the people that need them. So Polly, I know that people are going to want to hear more about you and get to know you and get your book. What's the one best way to connect with you? I'd love, just tell us one now, and if you want to share more in the comments of links, but what's the best place? Where do you show up?
At our website is the best. And then you just hit a contact button. So it's mywordpublishing.com. And we do help authors publish their books. That's primarily what you do. I helped Annie with the marketing of her book, but we really help people from, I have this idea and I've never written a book before. So we take them and just put them, in the right hands and manage that entire process. I like to say we do everything a publisher does, but we maintain no ownership at all. Everything's in the author's name. And if you see this little award, oh gosh, I'm all backwards. See right there where my finger is? That's U.S. congressional record. We were submitted into the U.S. congressional record for being a new publishing model that helps protect authors because everything is in the author's name. So yeah, and market too, but mywordpublishing.com is
soup to nuts if they have an idea to a book. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a little bit of marketing.
She can, I don't. Reach out to Polly and find out more. She does lots of cool things. And now I know what a cool person she is. Not that I didn't think she was cool before. Anyway, thank you to our listeners. Remember, any questions, comments, thoughts, leave them in the chat on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and we promise to respond to them all. Thank you for being with us and have a wonderful week. Thanks, Polly.